All right, everybody, welcome back to another dev stream. My name is Kevin, and we are building a combat platformer, I'm calling it now, indie game. I think I just said my name is Kevin. We got a lot going on this week. The purpose of these dev streams, these are really just as it goes, how it happens. They're unrehearsed. I try to make it a set hour of something that's tangible that you could potentially use and learn from. But it is an open conversation. We have our community members in Discord. They'll ask questions along the way. Sometimes we'll even just have discussions about game dev and how it all goes. And then usually we'll hang out afterwards and answer more general questions and things like that. For everybody who's in the Discord, as always, for I think California reasons, this is recorded. If you don't want to be heard, etc., don't talk. We can talk afterwards and so on. For everybody who's watching this after the fact, thanks for joining. And today we're going to be taking a look at a bunch of UI stuff. Nothing too crazy, but with the advent of our obstacle course, and now we've got to get a combat arena going, plus eventually the game, we need a way for our player to be able to choose which one they're going to do. So that's what we're working on today. I am going to recap a couple of things that I have recently updated. So let's take a look at what we got going on here. First, let's load our combat level because it'll be easier to show. And I noticed that our music has stopped, so we may have already crashed. Oh no, we didn't. Okay, thank goodness. Oh, but our perforces needs to be logged in. Okay, so a couple quick updates, some things that you all missed. If we press play, I have made a bunch of updates to combat. We actually now have the ability to, we have our swipe, we have our melee attack, right? And I also made it, you can see our damage numbers now. Our damage numbers are, they now, I figured out how to get it so that each successful, crit strike's the wrong word, but let's just roll with it for right now. But if you get it in the hot reload window, each successful one gets stronger and stronger. So if I hit this, so you can see I'm doing like 300 damage there. And that is all part of that window that opens up after you swipe, that's keyed off by the sound. And the idea there is you as a player can sit here and you can swipe all you want and do, 13 damage nonstop. But the hope and the point is to incentivize more purposeful play, or at least have the ability to do that. Remember, this is Combat Foundations, this is not Combat Finals. So I wanted some form of a system that would allow us to be able to do that. And that's kind of part of, this is just one piece of it. Now, the other thing we added in is if we bring up our ability tree, we now have our range attacks. And you can also see, I brought back, let me just get rid of this window because this is very distracting. Okay, I brought back our range attacks and I've turned everything on. So you can see the lightning that spreads between the enemies. And so I was able to, so this is on our right click right now. And so as our character attacks, the spread will go a certain number of enemies based on a power level. And then, you gain more power as each of these little collectible items that are running at me after I destroy an enemy. These are increasing. You can see at the bottom, this is old stuff I used to have that got completely broken along the way. But this is increasing at a combination of things, and I'll kind of explain them as I go. The middle one is our attack range, and then one of them is our attack speed. And you can see in the top left, it is printing what it's dropping. So there's a luck drop, there's a Bitcoin, There's more Bitcoin, more luck. And the luckier you get, the more stuff that drops. And the more, so there's some attack range, attack speed. And we get to a point where our attack range, we don't even have to move, and this stuff gets nuts. Where's our attack speed right now? We're at 81. We're about to cross the final piece we need. I think if we can get to 85. I could just create a debug menu that would do this for me, but so far all we're getting is luck. And we need attack speed. There we go, there's a bunch of attack speed, 93. Okay, so now one attack. So I'm only clicking the button once. So what I was testing was, once again, foundations, the ability to give the player more power as they progress. So now my right click is, as I've gotten, once you get to a point where more attack speed does nothing, it doesn't help you. So now my attack speed is so much that now each shot is like a quadruple mega shot, and it will just absolutely wreck anything that's there. So we'll be doing, there's a bunch of stuff anyways. Point is, we got all that going, which was a lot of fun. And then also added in, you probably can't hear it, but added in sounds. If you've played the latest patch, which is now 0.0.7, you know, there's stand-in sounds for hops, dashes, and then we got stand-in sounds for our swipe attacks and stuff like that. And to your point, Rusty, still, I actually put in the hit pause purposely, and it's might be, the idea is that it's hard to visualize right now, but there's going to be an animation that's playing, and having the character sliding across the ground as this animation is playing is going to be super weird. So I'm going to have to find the balance between fully stopping the character or slowing the character down, and for how long, to make that, figure out what that's going to feel like in the game. And that's, once again, that's going to be in combat finals. Right now we're just getting all the pieces. So we got all this stuff in here. We got a bunch of attack stuff in here, which is a lot of fun. Well, we need, as I was mentioning, we need a way for our players to be able to select what they're going to do when they log into the game. This seems to make sense, right? So right now, if we look at this, we have our player menu, and as it stands right now in the current patch that's in, when you press exit level, it actually exits the whole game. So I have updated that. So now when we exit the level, it will go back to our loading screen. And here, this is where this used to be the old interface where you could pick which region you were going to go fight in. In fact, some of it probably might even still work. Oh. So we're going to have to disable all this because this is not ready for prime time, but it'll be interesting to see what this does. It does nothing. You fall off the world. That's cool. Okay, so obviously not ideal, but the point I was getting to is what we're trying to do is we want to give our players, when they're at that screen, the option to pick whether or not they're doing the obstacle course or the combat gym. And you can think of it as, like, I was thinking about, even when the game ships, it will still be cool to give the player the option to go into the tutorial or a practice gym or whatever, so that they can practice how their weapons or loadouts or whatever works as they're going. So what we've got is, and I do this a lot in Photoshop or some other program, where I have the background and I just start mocking up what this stuff is going to look like. And so I've got a couple button borders, and my plan is to take, not that one, this one, and drop this down inside this button border. And we're just going to make a button out of this. And if we come back here, delete. What's it got? Anti-alias sampling all layers? That's interesting. I don't know why it's not. I would only expect it to do that. Let's try contiguous. Maybe that's wrong. That makes zero sense. It's also not surprising because this has been my life lately with Photoshop. Point sample, anti-alien, contiguous. I'm not sampling all layers, I'm sampling the current layer. There's no way that's true. Like, normal window selection is busted here from what I can tell. That's dumb. Okay, we're gonna do this the hard way. Shredded, modify, contract. Let's try 8 pixels. Nope. Let's go select, modify, contract. I'm gonna go 4 pixels. Okay, we'll call that good. Let's take this and mask it. There we go. So that's gonna be the button for our combat gym, basically. No, not for our combat, for our obstacle course. Yes. And then if we wanted to, we could probably go and, without getting too crazy, let's create a black. Let's do a black. Let's fill this in black. And then let's mask it. And we'll mask it by something like that. And then let's set our, we're gonna set our add mask to selection. We're gonna invert it, and then we'll come out here and we'll delete it. We'll delete this. Something funky is going on. Like, why is this pink? Oh, I think I figured it out. Add mask to selection. Come up here, invert it, delete that. There we go. So now we have kind of like a kind of more of a shadowed effect for this. So let's just take this and group this, and we're gonna call this the obstacle race button group. Okay, and then what I want to do, we could, part of my mockups, usually I'll do something like obstacle race. And then let's change this to white. Here's the question. And I'm not going to spend too much time with this because realistically speaking, I think it's worth hiring an amazing UI designer to help with this kind of stuff. But if we were just looking at this, we could do something like that, or we could pop it inside the UI, inside the button, I mean. So it's all self-contained, so I don't have to do anything The advantages and disadvantages of this are modularity. But I could also do this. I can also do this same thing in Unreal Engine. I don't have to do this here. So I'm just using this to visualize what I think looks better at this point. And we'll have to pick a font too. Yeah, that's not gonna work. And this is exactly why at some point we're just gonna have somebody help find some cool fonts that work for this world that we're creating, and we'll go from there. So for now, yeah, that's kind of boring, but whatever. That'll work. And also, I don't think I want it white. I think I actually want it kind of somewhat of an off. There's the UI color that we've been using. It was something more like this, but brighter. So it wasn't white, but it was. Yeah, I think we may end up going with gray instead. Okay, anyways, something like that. Let's call that good enough. So what I want to do is I want to take this, and let's just take this button and export it. So I am going to, wait, what happened to my border? Oh, this is my border. This should be in here with this. Okay. Let's just take this, hide this. And then I am going to Windows select around this. We're going to export this and pull this into Unreal and put this in our UI. And then we're going to connect it up and make it work so that our players can choose where they're going. Control Shift C, file new. Okay, there we go. That's our button. Let's get rid of this. Let's export this as a PNG. That's fine. I'm going to save this out. And we are going to put this in the Depot Art UI export. Sure. And this is going to be called our obstacle course. Let's call this button obstacle course BG. Save that. Sweet. We got a button, y'all. All right, so back here in Unreal, what I want to do is in our HUD, interesting UI leaderboard. So we still have stuff that's kind of left over from before. Interestingly enough, we have assets. We do have a UI folder here for assets. It's not very well organized. There's lots of issues with this, so we're gonna have to revisit this for sure. But let's just call this, what is this map called? This is called our world map, right? Yeah, that's our world map. So let's do UI, new folder. Maps, but no, I don't like that. If we call it maps, then we have two maps folders, so that's kind of weird. These are all the pieces that are set on maps. Let's just go with buttons. Let's just call this buttons for right now. we'll figure out what this is going to be once we figure out what our UI setup is going to be. So let's import into here. And what we're importing is the button that we just created, art, UI, export, this guy. We'll open.
The thumbnail that you're thinking of.
Yeah, it's a thumbnail. So technically this, but in Unreal terms, this is considered a texture still. So this would actually be like, usually I would put this, like for example, if we were doing this for characters, there would be a text folder for textures, and that's where all the textures for the character would be, and those would get used in the materials folder, which is in the mat folder. For UI, we'll have a text folder, but my broader question is more the organization of, we're gonna have multiple UIs in the game. There's gonna be map UIs for like loading and loading levels. There's gonna be UIs for the ability trees. There's gonna be UIs for the HUD. And what is the broader structure of that? So under assets UI, is there like for example HUD and world and what? Or is it I think, yeah, this is just my lack of experience with UI, right? I think a UI artist would be able to say, oh, you want these 3 folders, and each of them is going to have a text folder. And because I can also see this as, I think ultimately what's going to happen is this thing wouldn't be a button like this. It would actually be broken up into pieces, and this corner would be one piece of it, and this corner and the top edge and so on. So you can make custom buttons out of this. So you didn't have to recreate the button every time. That's what ultimately would happen. And so those pieces would get sliced and diced. So they would become modular. But for now, we can do this. And then if we go to, so this is our world map widget. And we're going to add a button over here. So to do that, we have a whole slew of buttons right now that these are all the ones that load maps. We're going to need to disable all of these so our players don't click on these yet, because we're just not ready. But let's add a button to our canvas. And this is going to be button obstacle course. Okay, and right now it's up over here. Let's do a couple things. Let's get our style. Here we go, image, obstacle. Okay, and the size of this thing, there we go. Size to content, we love it. Okay, now these buttons are all placed, they're just based off anchors. We could do the same thing. We could take this button, we could take the anchor, we could anchor it. Ooh, why didn't it like that? Undo. Am I somehow on the canvas? It's kind of weird that it does that. Oh, it's doing that because, I see. It's doing that because okay, so that's the middle of the button if it's aligned. The interesting thing is the position of this is a little bit weird when we look at this. So this is ultimately where we want it. The thing that's weird to me is, why is this here? And that is here because this canvas for the world map is set to stretch the overlay in the scale box. We picked the anchor that was the top right. That is so wild. Let's just zero this all out again. I'm so used to this thing being centered. But like, look at where this thing sits. When the anchor for this is centered, it is in the middle. Okay, so it's 0, 0, it's in the middle. However, if we anchor it to the top middle is not the top middle. And the top right is not all the way to the right. So something's going on with this canvas world map with the way that it's getting sized. Maybe. That had a difference. Scale to fit. Stretch direction, both. Let's go to the button obstacle course. That is closer to the edge. One. Something is going on with our map BG, maybe? Our map BG is... interesting. So we're sizing it to content with the anchors of this, but look at the size here. So this is going to be getting scaled by something. None. Okay, we have a sizing issue with our overlay should map to our scale box. Our scale box is not doing technically any stretching. If we scale to fit in X, interesting. Scale to fill. This is the problem with UIs, because we also have an overlay and a button. These are underneath this overlay, which fills the whole thing, and rather than fill screen, let's try looking at desired. Okay, and we're going to take our map PG, go on the full width, no offs. Okay, there's our offset for the right. So that now properly fills. Our canvas looks like it fills. Now let's check our button for the off. There we go. Jeez Louise. Okay, we got it. So now we're positioned and we want to drop this down and over. And that was an exercise in just because that's the kind of stuff that later on will come back and bite us. Okay, so we now have our button. Now what we can do is we can drop some text on it. And this is where I was saying we could do this in Unreal. So if we drop this text blocks on our button, it's kind of weird. Oh, it's because, okay, so what's happening is this is sizing to the content. It doesn't know the size of the image. So as a result of that, it's sizing it to the text. So what's the size of this image? This is 150 to 190 by 186. So let's just specify it. Let's just go 190 by 186. Okay? That way, when we take our text block, we could probably just drop it down to the bottom here if we wanted. And this is where I was saying we could do, I think, is it negative 40? Yeah. So what we can do is we can, through the use of padding, we can move the text to be above or below the button. In this case, I think it looks fine below for the button. And what I want to do is I want to go grab, I'm going to make this match our leaderboard UI coloring. So if we take a look at one of our leaderboard tiles, we're using this font color. copy. Let's go back to our world map for this text and see what this looks like. Yeah, this is why we're hiring a designer. For sure. Gotta know my limitations. Okay, so rather than text block, this is not gonna say text block. This is gonna say obstacle race. And we need to, we're gonna need to, let's just change our font from Roboto. We have so many fonts in Unreal, it's nuts. So there's a rule in font work, you like back from the old web days, where you don't want too many different fonts in your UIs. Like you pick one and that's the thing throughout. So technically speaking, this exit game font is what font? It's Roboto. And our leaderboard tile is using Roboto. And our actual leaderboard is using Roboto. And then our bug system is also using Roboto. So everything's Roboto, which is boring and not what we're ultimately going to settle on, but it's something. I wonder if there's a way I can preview what all these fonts are. If we browse to where this font comes from. Yeah, we have a whole folder of fonts. I mean, there's a lot of fonts in here. Some of them show a preview, but not all of them. Preview. Yeah, to have to open every single one of these and see what it is nuts. So, yeah, we're not spending time doing that. Let's go back to this, and we will just go save all, just in case. Check out. And this is going to go back to Roboto. So at least we can just change it all at once. Roboto. And then let's go 20. Obstacle race, cool. And then we are left aligned already. We're left aligned. I don't know why that doesn't look centered to me. Is there padding on this? There is padding, that's why. 0, 0, 0. Okay, so we have our obstacle race. Now, we need to be able to start the obstacle race when we click the button. So to do that, we've got to make sure that this button, which is already a variable. So when we go to graph, we do our onClicked. We are going to load the level. Now, to load the level, what we can do is we can take a look at what we're doing to exit the level here, which is open level by reference. Oh, interesting. Okay. So back here in our leaderboard, nope, we don't need that. Leader tile, we don't need that. We don't need our texture anymore. Here's our world map. What we are going to do is we are going to open level by object reference. We are not going to be using that. This is going to be our obstacle course. And then we're going to connect that in. We're not going to do any options with it. We're going to compile and save this. And then we're going to press play and test this. So we're starting in our combat gym. When we escape out, we're going to exit the level. And now we have our obstacle course. We definitely need to fix our hover. Also, this is giant. We could probably half the size of this because we need room here. Even if we're in full screen, we want room so it's not crowded. I think there's potential that this whole thing moves over eventually, and maybe I don't know. We'll figure it out. But if we click this now, does it load our obstacle course? It does, which is cool. Okay, which is great. Now, if we escape out of here and we exit the level, it comes back here. This is the loop we want, right? We want to be able to do this. If we exit game, we're out of the game. Perfect. Okay, so now all we got to do is figure out a hover. That isn't amazing, but is good enough. So in here, for this button, for hovered, let's do this. Let's use the same image. Okay, this is for hovered. And then we're going to tint it. Let's see if we can. Is there a way for me to test hovered? There's a simulate, isn't there? Simulate. Okay, so that didn't work. So let's trash this, trash this. Trash this. And I want to simulate that again to see if it's a simulation problem. Widget reflector? No, that's not it. I thought we could preview this. I can't remember how to do it though. All right, we're gonna take a leap of faith here. Let's do this. Let's go. I'm gonna have to note to self, look up how to simulate stuff. Let's do this. We're gonna bring this in, and then we're going to tent this in a way. Nope. Nope. Let's try. Let's try finding something. $100. That doesn't seem to make a difference. 0.5, 0.5, 0.7, 0.7, 0, 0.25, 0.5. Okay. So if that's our hover, can we mask this? Oh, we can actually outline it too. Okay, so let's try a couple things here. Outline of, yes, so this whole thing gets outlined. If we go right, I don't like these colors, but that's fine. So that's what it would look like when you mouse over it if we copy those settings down. Okay, so let's just do that. So in our hovered, we want our tint to be 1.7 and 0.5 rounded blocks with an outline of copy, paste. And then, interesting. So ultimately what we would do is we would probably have just a separate hovered image and we would sculpt that, for example, or something. But we're going to get rid of our tinting. We're going to get rid of our outline. What's interesting is there is an outline on this. I don't want an outline on this. So our outline would be 0. example. Okay, compile and save. And when we play this, when we escape out, there we go. It's pretty clear. That's all we need. We don't need more than that. We just need it clear that if you click this, you're going to go to the obstacle course race. And you know what you're clicking on. So now we just need to do the same thing for the combat level. Right? So what we're going to do is escape. And we'll go back to here. And then let's go, I think the easiest thing to do, I'm trying to figure out how to do this. If we come back in here, which level do we have in? Yeah, this is our combat level. Okay. What I would like to do. Oh, no, it's not under inventory. We gotta rebuild this whole thing. This is crazy. Alright, what I want to do is I want to go slow-mo 0.1. This is going to be crazy. I don't know if it's going to work. Alright. That's cool. Alright, so we gotta, what we're gonna try to do is we're gonna try to capture this, is what we're gonna try to do. Problem is, it does that every time. So let's go slow-mo 0.01. And then we're gonna That's kind of fun. That's just fun to do. I think that's just fun to do. Just damage numbers. Oh wait, I pressed the wrong button. Shoot. What were we doing? We were doing inventory. This weapon. Okay, we're gonna go slow-mo. But 0.01's too slow. Okay, let's try that. See what that looks like. We come back to Photoshop. We come over here. We don't need that one. Okay, let's go new, create, Control V. Let's go M. Let's grab this. Okay, and then we'll go back to our button stuff. Interesting. What is this file? Versus, I think I put this in the wrong file. Shoot. If we, because this is our breakdown file. Okay. All right. Duplicate this group, and we're going to duplicate it into our Rend world map 4K, because this is our mockup file. Oh, look at that. Holy smokes. Yeah, the sizing of that doesn't work. Okay, let's duplicate that. This is going to be our combat gym. But it's not going to be ultimately it's not going to be a combat gym. It is going to be, it's not going to necessarily be it's going to be like a dojo. Combat dojo? What do you think, Rusty?
Sounds good.
Combat dojo?
And after the attack you just threw, it looked like a firing range almost, but...
Oh, it could be that. Yeah, but that's because... But the...
Do you plan on having not just melee, right?
Yeah. So every character in the game has a melee attack set up and a ranged attack set up. And there's melee and range asks for everything. So I have a spreadsheet that kind of explains what all the differences are. And then they also have abilities. So we have melee attack, range attack, and we have abilities, and then we have how it all kind of mixes together. It is going to be insane. Okay. And then in here, we need to replace this.
So if you wanted the thumbnails to update, not really dynamically, but if, let's say, an area evolves and you want to update the image, could you do that on the fly? Or, I mean, would that be easy to do?
Sort of. Yes. So like what you could do is, so in Unreal Engine, you can capture an image like on the fly using like runtime texture type stuff. And like, for example, the bug reporting tool that we have, you can take a screenshot and that screenshot can get saved and you can use that screenshot to do stuff with, for example. So there's actually lots of really cool tools. For example, let's say that you have a game that uses, you have a bunch of different character outfits. Okay. Well, you could take, and as part of creating the character outfits, somebody could take pictures of each one, etc. But you can also build a tool in Unreal Engine that allows you to frame the character how you want it with the runtime lighting and the runtime physics and all those kinds of things, effects, everything. And you can then use that tool to take a snapshot that gets saved as a texture file that can then be reused in your UIs later. Okay, and now we have, oh, we almost have our second button ready to go. Could this be better? Yes. Is it different? Yes.
No, I like it.
Oh, that's the wrong one. Huh. What is that scale? Oh, I put it in the wrong place? Oh, it's in the wrong button. Hold on. It's supposed to be in Combat Dojo. Okay, that's our vignetting. This is the one that I wanted. Okay, we'll get a better picture later. Okay, and then what we're gonna do is what we did before, and ideally you wouldn't do this stuff manually. Ideally, what you would do is all of these things would be set up kind of like you would have an export process and like almost like a slicing type process, almost like the way old web design stuff used to work. Okay, so I need this to fit in here. Oh, escape, delete, back. Not that one. Not that one. This one. Gotta make sure we get all layers. Now we got it. Okay. Zoom in and make sure we got this set right. Okay. Let's get that. And then we're going to export this just like we did the last one. Save for web. Save. And this is going to be the button Combat Dojo. Combat Dojo. Save. Cool. So back in Unreal, same thing. I think we're still in slow mode. Let's import to here. Let's get our Combat Dojo open. Open. Cool. Come back to our UI. Actually, let's save that. Come back to our world map. We're going to take this button. We are going to duplicate it. And then we're going to take this. And this is going to be our button for Combat Dojo. Combat Dojo. And the reason we're doing this, by the way, is because I think we're just going to leave the game online. Anybody can play anytime. And what that means is, as I needed a framework so that as I add the combat test arena for people to test out what combat feels like, I still want people to be able to get to the obstacle course. And then eventually, like, all of this stuff will come online. I don't know. That's kind of what I'm thinking. So, Combat Dojo. And this one we can just position Y. What's interesting to me, minus 129. There we go. And this one's gonna have text that says Combat Dojo. Okay. And these are these both aligned? Now what we could do, probably what we should do, is these should sit in like a vertical box container. So we can just move them as a unit. But for now, it's alright. So many things that have to get done. It's crazy. So let's take our Combat Dojo. We need to add our on-click for that. And the level that we want to load for that one is nothing crazy. We're just going to load our, for right now, it's our Combat Arena. Combat Arena. And then we will compile, save this, and then test it. And then when we press play and we escape out, this is where we're going to start. Interesting. See this white border here?
Yeah.
Is that part of our image? Or is that because there's a zero length border on our image? Let's try something. In our world buttons, designer, Combat Dojo border, outline settings, let's make it black. And then let's play. I still see it. What's weird to me is it's a rounded corner. Why is that a rounded corner? If it was a problem in the texture, I wouldn't. Oh, no? No. If it was a problem in the texture, I wouldn't expect it to be a rounded corner. Yeah, it shouldn't. It can't be in the texture because it's the size, including the buttons. Man. I forget how to change the zoom in here. There's a way to change the zoom. Oh, it's here. Is this it? Desired screen size. We got 2 here. Nope, that didn't change it. I can't remember how to do it, but I do. When I can, from what I can see, I do think I see. Let's try something. Press disabled. Disabled. Pressed normal. Pressed color bit background color. Okay. Not sure why that's black, but let's just roll with it for a second. Yeah, this is not... Okay, so we have a problem. Okay. This stuff drives me nuts. Okay, so what is happening is in our... If we zoom in... I can't even zoom in on this. Okay. It's hard. I don't know if I can show you here. Let's see here. sRGB. Padding. Adjustments. So what's happening is there's a little bit of a white outline at the edge of this thing. And this is probably happening because when we export this image, let me show you. If we export this as a PNG, there's our transparency, and there's a matte, usually, color in here. And what's happening is it's a combination of pre-multiplied or some pixels when it's setting the transparency and the color of the background that it's using when it decides what it is. And in this case, we're getting white. And I'm trying to remember where the setting is. Quality. Preview, convert to sRGB. Let's try that. You know what? Let's try something else here. Let's try the other export. Let's export this as a PNG. And this is going to our Dojo VG background. Oh, that didn't do it. So then if we re-import this, I want to see this on black. Oh, we're in a world I'm not used to. Preview platform. Like, I don't want to see the checker box. Texture, sRGB. Editor show final encode. Compress without alpha. Alright, I'm going to dig into this. What's happening though is we're getting a little bit of a white border around these things, and it's because the it's easier to see in here, but you can kind of see this square. It's very light, but it's very annoying. But we can get into our obstacle course now. Our movement dojo. And we can get into our obstacle course, which is what we wanted to be able to do, which is cool. And then all we need to do at this point is we could set it up so that now all we do is we set our default starting level for the project to be the world map. So that is not the button I meant to click. Start. So rather than the movement course, we're going to start with the world map. Turns out that's difficult. I just need to figure out what the name of it is. Hold on. This thing, file save, browse, is referenced in the world start map. I have no idea why that wasn't popping up. Let's go. Oh, world start map. There it is. Okay. So now, from now on, when we start our game, no matter what we have open, we should start on the world start map. I lied, apparently. Oh, no. That makes sense. That makes sense. That would mean, so what it is, it's not that we're going to start on that. We're still, if we play an editor, we're still going to start from here. Because we're in this map right now. But if we were to reopen this game, our loading map would be the world start map. So this would be the map that we start with. I don't know why obstacle race looks like it's spelled wrong, but it does.
No, obstacle is fine.
Yeah.
I see the thin white band, but like the buttons are not final anyway, so I don't think, is it wise to spend too much time worrying about it?
No, it's definitely not. The thing that is annoying, what it is so I'm used to worrying about like pre-mult and multiplied when we're doing like compositing and stuff like that for film, and it's more just a when I first saw this in Unreal, I thought I understood what it was, and so even though I thought I understood what it was, somehow I can't find the right magical settings to fix it type thing. And so it's just more of an annoyance from a lack of my understanding standpoint. It's not necessarily that I necessarily want to fix it. It's more just like I want to understand why I don't understand it. I'm also thinking about, for debugging purposes, right now, this whole like pattern that we use for like gaining power attacks, I think I'm gonna add a thing to the UI just to show the window so that you can see when it's closing and how fast it is, to make it clearer for the player and especially for me as I'm testing and debugging this. Because originally this pattern, this bing, bing, wait, bing, 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 like there's a rhythm to it. I didn't think I liked it, but now it doesn't bug me.
I think the timing is fine. It's just that when you spam the attack button, you don't really have a feedback that you're not doing anything. I mean, it's fairly obvious quickly that it doesn't hit, but the animation itself doesn't show that you're not hitting as hard.
Yeah. Well, and I think being able to see the damage go up is going to help. I do think, you know what, you might be right though. Maybe we don't even, like when you're doing this, it's not hitting. It looks like it's hitting. And we may need to make it so that this effect doesn't even play until it's a guaranteed hit.
Or it swings slower, I guess. It's something you could
Yeah, something.
show that it doesn't something. Because right now it just really feels awkward because it's moving fast and you assume that it should hit, but it doesn't connect.
And this is exactly why there is nothing in the game for you to hit yet. Because I'm still building all of this foundation stuff. But it is cool to be able to do one-shot these dudes once you get going. Which is cool. Okay, so look at that, we're at an hour. Pretty good, we're a little over an hour, but we were able to set up our buttons or UI, get our levels to be able to load, and that gives us room. It basically gives us room so that as we get our combat gym set up, combat dojo, as we get that set up, we're going to be able to allow our players to choose whether or not they're doing the obstacle course or the combat dojo, as well as anything else. I think it's a good idea to have that. I think I needed it from the standpoint of even just from a testing standpoint. At this point, what I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to be continuing to work on just some of the combat foundations. We're going to be rebuilding the UI for abilities for a lot of different reasons. Right now, what we have in there is terribly confusing from, I think, not only from a testing standpoint, but also from a final game standpoint. Figuring out what all of those options are. I've been looking at a lot of different games where it's one thing that's super clear is if you equip this item, you are going to have this much more attack power, or you're going to have this much more healing, or this is going to reduce your crit strike chance, or whatever it is. And I think giving players the ability to do that is going to be important. I'm still toying with the idea of I'll share with you a problem, conundrum, whatever. Once you get homing missiles, why would you ever want anything else? And so finding ways from a game standpoint to make it so that there are times to use homing missiles and there are times to use straight shot and things like that. And that is going to be a bunch of stuff, I think, from a design standpoint and a tuning standpoint. So, for example, if you have homing missiles equipped, maybe they are slower, or maybe they don't do as much damage, or defenses for the enemies, where if you shoot a homing missile at this type of enemy, they have an aura around them that causes the missile to misfire and it just goes somewhere else. So those are the kinds of things that I'm playing with, not necessarily taking away homing missiles from players, but more giving them a reason to have to opt in to a straight shot, for example. And so for those enemy types, the whole reason I just told you all of that is because I think it's going to be very difficult in the middle of combat with that ask to switch whether you're using straight shot or homing missiles right now, especially with the way the UI works and everything like that. If we are expecting our characters to be able to swap out a primary and a secondary ranged weapon, it's going to need to be fast. It's going to need to be fast to the point where you're fighting I'm going to call it like a radar blocking enemy shows up on screen. You need to be able to swap super fast to straight shot missiles and swap back. You need to be able to, or we need the idea of when we target, like our targeting system needs to talk to our ability system so that if you target an enemy that has radar jamming, it knows you need to auto swap to a straight shot missile. And that may be the best answer. But we got to figure that out. And those are the kinds of things that I'm going to be digging into. But that is why we need to redesign this whole UI, because are you going to swap to a straight shot? Like, what are you going to swap to, basically? And is it going to be on a mouse wheel, etc.? So there's a couple things we're working on. This is all what I would consider part of combat foundations. We do also have some hit react stuff that's coming. I do need to do some exploration with if you attack, you know, there right now you can't see it, but there's going to be an animation that plays, and so when you press attack, when the animation starts playing, it's pretty common that you're not going to be able to change that animation. Now you might be able to interrupt it, but if you do, what does that look like from the standpoint of, if we add in those interrupts, you know, your hit's no longer going to hit. Dude, there's a lot to do in Foundation, so we're going to do all that stuff. Rusty, did you have any questions for the stream before I wrap the stream, and I'll hang out for any kind of general Unreal, etc. your project questions afterwards?
Yeah, no, I've got nothing. It's fine.
All right, very cool. Everybody else, thank you very much for checking out the channel, following this indie journey. I know some of these dev streams, they're not necessarily, you know, compartmentalized, but I'm using chapter titles and all kinds of stuff like that. So hopefully you can find stuff that's either valuable and useful or fun to watch along the way. If nothing else, it's fun to watch me faceplant sometimes. Keep an eye out for upcoming devlogs. Thanks for being a huge part of this journey. And as always, thank you to Patreon for your support and everybody for helping spread the word. I hope everybody has an amazing rest of your day, and I will catch you on the next one. Take it easy.